All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Summer Boger, president of Eagle Forum of California. I have with us Orling Kurla today, who is our executive secretary. And then we have our special guest. She's going to be speaking to us, Erin Friday. She's not only an attorney, but she is a mother from San Francisco. And she's a Democrat, and she is the co-leader of a parent advocacy group called Our Duty that was started in 2018. And it was founded after Erin experienced personally a 2-year battle rescuing her own daughter from a transgender cult. Just in the nick of time, because her beautiful daughter was planning to start hormone puberty blockers and reassignment surgery. And Erin tells this amazing story to us that she's going to tell tonight about her personal experience of helping her daughter to see what cult like thoughts she was gaining from, unfortunately, our public school system or teachers, counselors, the medical doctors, and how her own mother was turned into the enemy. So thank you so much, Erin, for joining us today. I know you get lots of speaking engagements. We welcome all of the people who are joining us on the call. I'm going to remind you to please mute yourself so that we don't have any background noise while we're listening to Erin. We did have a prayer and a pledge opening before the recording, and our spiritual thought Erin just said, and I thought that it would be a really great spiritual thought, and that's that, we need to speak up and we need to speak publicly, and we shouldn't just go before them one time and then slip away into the darkness. So her positive thought was, I will not be the parent that slips away into the darkness. So take it away, Erin. We are so excited to have you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. And before I get started, though, I do have to just correct the intro just a little bit.
Please do.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. But because my daughter was a minor, she couldn't do any of those medical interventions without parental consent. So that wasn't lined up for her, and I would never have let that occur. I would have moved out of state or moved out of country before I would let any of those horrible things happen to her. But doesn't mean she didn't want to have those interventions. But let's kind of start, where all this began. And I know I get introduced as a Democrat, and there's going to be one or two of you who said, why are you still a Democrat? I get that all the time. Really, truly, the party that I joined, 37 years ago doesn't look anything like the party that exists right now. And I keep my Democratic card for a reason. There's some strategy to that, but I certainly am on the conservative side of a Democrat. And there's a lot of us out there that we don't get in the news. We don't get airtime. They bury us. We are actually on the side of family and on the side of bodily integrity, more so than you'll ever know, because they don't want us to talk to the Republicans to talk to the Democrats, and the Democrats to talk to the Republicans. It doesn't fit the narrative. But let's start back in 2010, California really started its march towards transgenderism. Back in 2010, bills started to be passed that started to empower children to make adult decisions. At the age of 12, they were given the ability to get a medical health without consent of their parents. They were given the ability to get mental health services without consent of their parent, or their parent even knowing. And that was actually under Arnold Schwarzenegger. So we're going really back in time. But California started to move to this place where we became a child-led state.
Way to go, honey.
Children knew more than their parents. And that is, and we see this see this today. Kids can get abortions at the age of 12 without parents' consent. They can get on birth control without parent consent. They tried last year to do the COVID vaccine without parents' consent at the age of 12. So there's something magical about that age of 12, and we can talk about where I think why that age is so important to those who are pushing an agenda to pull parents apart. But back in 2017, 16, they started to pass bills that required schools to teach about LGBTQ issues in school. And most of us thought LGB, okay, fine, we're in California, we're pretty progressive. But it was the T and the Q that really made its way through, where they started to teach in 5th grade and in 7th grade about transgenderism and that children could be born in the wrong body. They were pretty quiet about it for many years. And then now it's just out there, as you can see with pride parades, everything is very in your face, but it was a slow roll for about 10, 15 years. And I will readily admit, I was not paying attention to any of these bills. I'm raising 2 kids. I'm in a law practice. I trusted our lawmakers to do right by us, and they didn't. So shame on me, but that will never happen again. Because what I learned was when my daughter was in 7th grade, she got a dose of transgender indoctrination. It was 1 hour out of a 5-hour course. At that time, they would hire third parties to come in and teach the course, because most of the teachers, they wouldn't have taught what was taught to my daughter when she was 11. 11, these kids aren't sexual beings, but she was taught for 5 hours, very a sexual curriculum. And then, the last hour was all these gender identities. That Friday, she and her friends came to my house and they sat in the front yard, and I got them their juice boxes and snacks and whatever stuff moms usually do. And they all talked about their different gender identities. And that was the first time I even heard of cisgender. And it was, alarm bells were just going off in my head saying, what are they teaching at the public school that I volunteered at, the public school that I knew all the teachers by first name. I, raised tens of thousands of dollars for this school. I was at the school once a week. How did I miss this? And I went to the parenting class, and that's when I got the real dose. I got an 8.5 by 11 sheet of different gender identities that made no sense to me. And as I raised my hand and said, this doesn't make sense, this is nonsensical. What does agender mean? What does demi boy? All this nonsense. I was basically told to shut up. And they also told us that any person who is not like Barbie or like G.I. Joe on the other end is somewhere on the spectrum. And so we are all transgender. So congratulations, you're all transgender. You can all now take that identity on tonight, based on the teaching of these, this third party, which of course is paid by our tax dollars and our indoctrinators. So fast forward, we're into COVID, and what the normal course for girls who don't like the body changes that are happening over puberty. They don't like, getting their menstrual cycle. They don't like getting hips. They don't like getting breasts. They don't like gaining weight. They don't like men looking at them. They go to the internet and they ask the internet people why it is that they don't like their body. And it's always going to spit out, because you're trans. You can take a test right now to see if you're transgender. And just by taking the test, it will say, just by asking, you are. So this is what kids are exposed to at their most vulnerable, ages. Puberty's hard. There's nobody I know who loved puberty. I mean, you can show hands like, did you love puberty? Nobody did, including the boys. As she moved into COVID with the lockdowns and the loneliness, the internet became her friend. And that's where the real indoctrination continued. Like I said, any discomfort, and then she made the pronouncement that she was transgender. And that's the ending point. They tend to go through something like pansexual, polyamorous, lesbian, non-binary, and then they land on trans. And that's what she did. She landed on trans. And from that moment, I found out, through the public school, that they had changed her name. They had changed her pronoun. They had never met her. She had not stepped foot into the classroom because it was COVID. They couldn't tell me what color hair she had, whether she was tall, fat, skinny, but they took her name. And when I called the school to complain, a few days later, CPS showed up at my home along with a police officer. So then I knew the gravity of really what was happening in the world. And I took the deep dive and started to read everything that I could read. And I was very lucky because Abigail Schreier's book, Irreversible Damage, had just been published. And so I devoured it, and I turned to the last page, and where's the how-to? Where's the how to get your child back? There was no last chapter, the chapter that, of course, I needed the most. We went through psychologists and psychiatrists, here in California, finding someone who was curious about the causality, and was impossible. All of them told me I needed to accept my daughter as a son, that my memory was incorrect, that when she was the girly little girl that she was, that was all in anticipation of the day when she could finally blossom and come out as her true self. It was like I was living in just a funny farm. None of it made any sense to me, and as it shouldn't, because none of this makes sense. There's no truth to it. There is no transgender child. That is a word that was made up. There are children who are confused, but no one physically can be born in the wrong body. It doesn't work biologically. You have a sperm and you have an egg, and they come together and they make one human, and that's it. Our brains are connected to our bodies. We are one and the same. And it is a horrifying thing to tell a child that they are born wrong. You are telling the child that, not that they just have a big nose, or that, their hands are large. Their entire body is wrong. And this is what causes these kids to get severely depressed. They are also told, and who are they being told by this? Teachers, psychologists, school administrators, friends, the internet, that their parents, if they don't believe that they truly are the opposite sex, that their parents hate them, that they are bigots, that they're transphobes. It's a really horrible thing. I was called by my first name instead of mom. It was, I could see from her internet searches that these kids were telling her how to emancipate, run away, steal my credit cards, harm me. This is a cult. As we know with any cult, the first thing that a cult requires is for you to disengage from the people who love you and know you best. And that's what they were telling her to do. And it's an onslaught. And as good as a parent as you can be, if you're not, technologically savvy, and I mean an expert at tech, these kids are going to get around every parental block you put on their phone or the internet. They're going to beat you. And they're going to continue to reach out to that crowd, that cheering crowd who are all celebrating your child's demise. And it's millions of people, right? Against mom and dad, millions. It was a really dark period in our lives, but I decided to just follow my gut, because again, I didn't have that last chapter of Abigail Schreier's book. I didn't have a how-to. There was no how-to. So I took that phone and I locked it in a safe. We shut down the internet. I would toss her room to find, phones that people dropped off, iPads, all sorts of different laptops, old ones. I have a lot of iPhone 4s and 5s right now. I don't think they're worth anything, but if you want one, let me know. But it took, we had to send her to close family members who weren't buying into the transgenderism. We had to pull her from the public school. If you want to keep your child safe, you cannot send your child to a public school in California. I don't care if you live in a very red county. You have no idea what they're doing at the schools. These teachers are trained to lie to parents. They are trained to indoctrinate these kids. They hide the books that they are reading to kindergartners and even TK, 4-year-olds. They hide them. They have clubs. They have their affinity clubs. They'll call them all sorts of euphemisms. UBU club, ally club, rainbow club, and they'll hold them at lunch so that they can avoid getting permission slips from parents. Everything is designed to shut out the people who really love the child. And this is how they're trained. And these teachers, some teachers are nefarious. They know exactly what they're doing. Many of the teachers are just so trained, and we'll see this in California with the laws. They are force-fed this and told that if they don't keep these secrets from the parents, that the parents will beat them, that they'll harm them, or that the child will commit suicide. And so these teachers believe it because that's all they're told. Their unions tell them, you go to the CTA website, it is filled with LGBTQ training. There's nothing on there about how to teach math. We're 50th in the United States on scores in math and English. And go to their website, you will lose your mind with what they're spending money on. Is all about indoctrination, social justice warriors, nothing about how to read and write the things that our kids actually need at school. California passes bill after bill after bill without anybody raising a stink about this. I drive up to Sacramento. I'm 2 hours away, one direction. So that's a 4-hour drive round trip. And for the last 2 years, there was nobody fighting these bills. There was nobody calling in, Republican or Democrat. They just passed. And the Republicans weren't even asking one question. They were afraid. They would mouth, I brought, I don't know if you've heard of Chloe Cole. She's a detransitioner. She's from this, close to the Sacramento area. At the age of 13, she said she was trans. She went on puberty blockers, testosterone. At the ripe age of 15, she had her breasts removed. All paid for by insurance. And at 17, she had regret, and she detransitioned at the age of 18. She no longer can breastfeed a child. She doesn't know if she can have children. Her voice is deep. She has, physical ailments because of this. And she came up to Sacramento and testified with me, and no one asked her a question. They sat there in silence and said it doesn't happen. So the only way we're ever going to get change is if those of you who are listening to this understand that you have to do something. Everyone has to do something. An email, a phone call, show up. We can't sit silently because we've been doing that for 15 years. It's how we got here, and it's getting worse. It's not getting better. As we get louder, they're passing bill after bill after bill. I do want to just, I know Summer, you said the happy ending. So my daughter, after a year and a half of believing that she was trans, did come out of the cult. We were very, very lucky. I also, I quit my job. It was a full-time job to bring my child back into reality. And not everyone can do that. Because you have to take the hate. When you're pulling a child out of, it's like, taking the cocaine from a drug addict. The person taking the cocaine is going to be hated. And it's a hard thing for a parent to be hated. But it's something that you have to do. Because our generation, we were told that we were supposed to be friends with our kids, and that's a mistake. We're supposed to be parents. And when they're adults, we can be friends with them. But there's the child-led garbage is nonsensical. We set the parameters, we set the boundaries for our children. And they need that. They need us to hold the line. They need us to remind them about what reality is. That's grandparents' job, is for you to tell your grandchildren over and over again how wonderful it is to be a woman or to be a boy. And that if you're a boy who likes girl things, no big deal. You're just a boy who likes girl things. And same for girls. The transgender movement is attacking people who may grow up to be same-sex attracted. It's really transitioning the gay away. It's attacking kids who are a little bit uncomfortable with their place in the world. They might be artsy, they might be a little bit nerdy. And it's really going after, I think I saw in the chat, it's really going after autistic kids. Because of the black and white thinking. And, they don't like certain types of fabrics. They don't really follow the mold of being extremely feminine or being extremely masculine. And, California did this 30 years ago. California had a eugenics program where we sterilized Black people, poor people, and autistic kids. We did this before, and we're doing it again. Because there's money to be made. Each one of these children is worth about $1 million, $1.5 million to the medical community. That's a lot of money. There used to be one pediatric gender clinic in the United States 13 years ago. Now there's over 250, plus all the private ones. They're making money hand over fist. And because these children too, once you remove some of their body parts, they are lifetime medical patients. So that money gets made regardless of whether they, transition back or not. And here's some really sick news. And I'm sorry, I'm such a Debbie Downer. I'm so sorry to do this on a Monday night. But they're passing a bill right now that will, permit somebody who has been sterilized to essentially buy a baby. And that's going to be on our dime. And guess whose womb they're going to be renting? They're going to be renting the poor woman's womb to make these babies for all these people who, because of, gender medicine, ruin their bodies. And that's going to, it's going to be paid for by our tax dollars. So they're making money no matter what. They sterilize these kids and then they make money on the other end. There's online hormone companies. They have raised 25 million, each of them, in private equity. People are investing in removing children's body parts. It's an investment. And it's going to pay off. And then the hormone companies are partnering with a company called Stork, which is now you get to buy the baby.
Mhm.
So you can see the money. So there's a huge money aspect of this. And remember, I told you about the age 12 and why that's a magic number. Once California, and this is going, on in every state, even red states. Once we start saying that a 12-year-old can make adult decisions about abortion, mental health, medical health, vaccines, guess what else they're going to be able to make decisions about? Sex. That's where it's going. They want to put children in the driver's seat as far as what they're able to consent to. Well, if they can consent to all these other things, why can't they consent to sex? So that's another basis for why this is happening. So there's money, there's pedophilia, and then there's the destruction of the family. If you've heard of the term chosen family, that is also a euphemism for a glitter family. There are families, and I use that term very loosely, that are standing by, waiting for gender confused kids to either run away from home or go into the foster care system so they can swoop in and take these kids. And those are called chosen families. Because if your mom and dad don't affirm you, you're not a good family and you can choose your own and move on. Very, very scary stuff. And we are at the precipice of where we're either going to right the ship or we're going to be done as a society and as a civilization if we're not protecting our most vulnerable, which are our children. California has 10 bills this year that are on their way to passage. There's one called AB 957. It has already passed the Senate Judiciary. It's going to go to the Senate floor in any day now. And what that bill does is it says for the health, welfare, and safety of a child, you must affirm the child's gender identity, regardless of age, regardless of persistence, regardless if it's a cat gender, autism gender, all these made up genders, because there's an infinite number, according to the experts. If you don't affirm, you are not fit as a parent for the health, welfare, and safety of the child. Those 3 words are really, really important. Those are abuse buzzwords. So really what they're doing now, and this is Senator Scott Wiener and Lori Wilson, Assembly Member Lori Wilson, is they are going to deem parents like me, parents who held the line and said reality matters, they're going to deem me abusive. And they're going to take my child. And when they take my child then gets to pick the chosen family. Right? They're all interrelated. I can tell you, if you want to pick up the phone and send some emails, we are flooding the lawmakers right now with phone calls and emails. And all you have to do is say, vote against AB 957. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to even really understand what the bill says. You just need to pick up the phone and do this. They need to know that we're watching and that we're paying attention, because we haven't been paying attention. Not just the Democrats, none of us have been paying attention. Maybe a few of you out there, I hope. But these bills are passing with not a blip, not a word from parents, not a word from grandparents, not a word from teachers. There's a bill right now, it's called SB 407. This bill again is Scott Wiener. Now, Scott Wiener doesn't have children. Why is he passing all these bills around about children? You have to ask that question.
Mhm.
Is it to protect children? I don't think so. But he's passing a bill that will require resource families, and that's the word for parents who are willing to take in a foster care child. Those parents must promise, contract, to affirm the gender identity of the foster care child they bring in.
Mhm.
And if they don't get to be resource parents. So that cuts out any Christians, any Muslims, any people who believe in biological reality cannot take in a foster care child. Why are they doing this? Because a foster care child can dictate their own gender interventions. So they can transition themselves at the age of, anybody know? 12. 12, the magic number. And then they can go into these chosen families, right? They'll go into families who may have immoral backgrounds. There are 60,000 kids in foster care in California. 30,000 of them are in LA County. 70% of them are brown and Black kids. So the Democrats who say that they are for equity, inclusion, and taking care of the lowest denominator, it's a lie, right? Because they want to ensure that these kids, the 70% of Black and brown kids, don't get a forever family. Because to be that forever family, you have to promise to pump that child with cross-sex hormones, puberty blockers, or do surgeries. So that's a Scott Wiener bill. That's SB 407. There's another bill that is, lo and behold, Scott Wiener again. Ding, ding, ding. Anybody who voted that gets a point. It is AB 665. This is a bill that will permit children age 12 to leave their family's home and go to a residential shelter without any claim of abuse or harm or danger from their family. Let's think about that for a second. What this means is that a 12-year-old, that's sixth grade, can get into a fight with mom and dad. Let's say they just fight over, playing video games too long. That child can go to school and tell the school counselor, my mom and dad were so mean to me last night. And that school counselor can say, well, would you like to stay somewhere else tonight? And that child could say, I want to get back at my mom and dad because they were mean. I'm going to go into that shelter for the night. I'll show them. That child can go to the shelters, no claim of abuse. No claim of abuse by the parents. No claim of suicidality or harm to others, can go to that shelter for the night. What happens to mom and dad in that scenario? Mom and dad have a black mark now on their reputation, right? Their child ran away. Their child took off, of course, enticed by our California government, but the child took off. Mom and dad are going to be investigated by Child Protective Services. Who knows how long that will take? It can take up to 2 years before parents are absolved. And in the meantime, the child is at that residential facility. Those residential facilities are not places that you want your children to be located. We have sex traffickers hanging outside of these facilities, waiting for these kids. Because these facilities aren't locked, because remember, it's child-led in our state. Child had adult abilities to make cogent decisions. You have drug dealers outside. And inside, you have kids that may be much more violent than, or, troubled than the child who was just brought there, who was just doing it to get back at mom and dad, right? But the real reason that they're passing this bill is really because of transgenderism, because this is how it goes. Student takes on a new pronoun and name at school, says, I want to keep it secret from mom and dad. The counselor, who of course is trained to keep these secrets and to say mom and dad are bigots and they're bad people, can take that gender confused kid and plop them into the residential shelter. The counselor doesn't actually even have to agree. The 12-year-old can agree. And then they go into the LGBTQ housing facility where they can get their hormones, surgeries, puberty blockers at the ripe age of 12, 13, 14. I don't know about you, but my decision-making abilities at the age of 12 weren't that great. I would even say at 24, I was still having trouble making decisions that, made sense. We know that kids' brains don't mature until the age of 23 to 25. And that's the average child. If the child is neurodivergent, it's more like 30. So again, what I said about the autistic kids, they're getting preyed upon because they're not able to think long-term consequences. They get an offer. My mom stinks. She won't, she won't call me a boy's name. Off she goes into that shelter. And then mom and dad have to fight for that child back. So that's what's happening here in California. We are losing our parental rights when our children turn 12. We are abusive parents if we do not transition our children. We are doing the opposite of what, Scott Wiener complained about in Texas, that, parents are getting penalized for transitioning their kids. Well, they're doing the opposite here. If you don't transition your kid, you're getting penalized. Senator Wilk said in one of the hearings, he's a Republican, and he was at the hearing and he said, I'm leaving California. It's not safe to raise a family here. And I agree. Or it's really difficult. You really have to be, you can't send your child to a public school. You can't even send them to a private school. Because even private schools, Catholic schools, are in on the game. There's very few places you can educate your child where they're not going to be inundated with transgender beliefs. Target, you can walk around, it's been Pride Month. Those flags are everywhere. They're flying at our Capitol. Our Capitol is flying a trans flag, which incidentally was designed by a pedophile. That's where we are. That's where we are in the state of California, and Oregon, Washington State, New York, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. There's not many states besides Florida that are safe havens at the moment to raise your children. And it's stunning. It's a stunning place to be in America. It's a stunning place for me as an attorney to understand that our First Amendment rights are being eroded by us. We're doing it to ourselves. We are destroying our democracy without one bomb going off. The bombs are happening in Sacramento and in Washington, and when we vote or don't vote. No, I want to answer the question. Are Catholic schools required to teach transgender? Somewhat, yes. They are required to teach some of the required curriculum for the state of California. They do not have to teach about that you could be born in the wrong body, but they're doing it. They're doing it because these teachers have been trained for a decade now that a child can be born in the wrong body, that transgenderism is the same as being gay, and they are very, very different. I saw an earlier comment, how does the LGB get disentangled from the T? It's really hard because there is a playbook that was written by the ACLU and the Denton Law Group, and even Reuters was part of it, where the T was told to hitch itself to LGB, hitch itself to Black Lives Matter, hitch itself to abortion, make it really difficult for Democrats like me to vote, right? They hitch themselves to Planned Parenthood. So feminists are confused. Do they run away from Planned Parenthood, who they thought were doing good services for poor women, but now are transing all these kids? Because at the age of 18, you can walk into Planned Parenthood, you can buy testosterone without any mental health exam. 30 minutes, you're out with your testosterone. Boys, 30 minutes with estrogen, and boys are rendered sterile. They can be rendered forever, irreversibly sterile after 4 months on estrogen. That's all it takes. Game over for them. Girls, it's a little bit longer, but any of you can walk into Planned Parenthood and say that you feel like you're non-binary, and you can walk out with your syringes. No questions asked. It doesn't matter if you look as feminine as can be. You can be in a pink dress with full makeup on and high heels, and they'll give you the testosterone. They don't ask. They don't really try to make a determination of whether this is a genuine dysphoria or not. You can get free letters on the internet for surgery. Approval letters, guaranteed. 18-year-olds can get guaranteed approval. Eunuch is now a gender. It's even a gender for children. We are living in a demonic time. It is a desperate time, but good always beats evil. I'm a firm believer in that. We just need people to stand up for what is right and not be afraid. The more voices, and they're coming, but we have to get louder and we have to go faster, because these kids are getting harmed. We will defeat transgenderism. We will. I guarantee we will. It's just going to be how many bodies are going to be on the side of the road. And I don't want those bodies. I don't want them. I have parents calling me all the time in absolute desperation. I don't want another detransitioner calling me, deciding whether they're going to live another day or not. So we really have to get out there, pick up the phone, take a half an hour and call about these bills. I'm going to give you the numbers again, and then I'm going to give you a website to go to. It's made easy for you. The bills are SB 407, AB 957, AB 665, and AB 223. There's more, but these ones are rapidly passing. You need to call your senators, your local senators, and then just call a bunch of random senators from, the California website, which is Ledge Info. Just call them. Inundate their phones. Let them know that you're watching, because they're really surprised that people are now fighting. They've been doing this without even a speed bump in their way. We need to show them we've had enough. And then we need to vote them out. And we need to vote out the Republicans too, who are just sitting there shaking their heads and not saying a word. Everyone needs to stand up. Look at, if I'm standing up, everyone needs to stand up. And super important, there's a website called Facts, Law, Truth, Justice. FLTJ LP. It's got a toolkit on these bills. You don't have to even ask the questions that are in the toolkit. Just call and say, I oppose these bills. That's all you have to do. I oppose these bills. Get your friends to call. I oppose these bills. This one, this one, this one, and this one. They put little check marks on how many people are calling. And for the first time this year, here's why I know we're going to win. The first time this year, the Democrats up on those committees were actually asking questions. They got pushed into asking questions when we had 60, 70 parents go up to the microphone and say, I oppose this bill. And then they had to hear the phone ringing and the people calling in, and another 60 people said, we oppose this bill. They had to listen to 120 people, and they know with every person that drives up there, with every person that calls in, there's 500, 1,000 people behind them. So we have to do something, because otherwise we're going to have a really big body count. I'm going to end it on that and just open it up to questions, I guess, Summer, but we can do this.
Yeah,
I don't have any more of these Zooms anymore where we talk. I want to talk about our successes. We need to be successful here in California. It started here. We have to end it here. It's the only way we're going to save America.
yes, and speaking up at school board meetings or city council, because I mean, it's just crazy to me how upside down people's thought process has gotten. That reality no longer matters, and there is no absolute truth. One of the things that I wanted to share is, I mean, I've had teenage kids in the last few years, and when my oldest started 9th grade, that was the first year that it was emerging in the public schools that they had these colored flyers that they had posted on the wall in the classroom that said what the different genders were, or the different names that you could call yourself by what you're attracted to. So these words that probably a lot of you don't know, like pansexual, asexual, homosexual, right? They have them all on different colored flyers around the room. So it was just emerging. Well, my other child is only 3-4 years behind. And in 4 years, it is prolific across the school. In 4 years, it went from emerging to prolific across the school. And that's how much it's really gone full bore on our children. Every Instagram, Facebook post, Snapchat, whatever it is they're using these days to communicate on social media is all affirming this pride transgender ideology. And so if they like it, right, then they get more of that. And it just continues to funnel them in to more and more social media that affirms that this is the agenda to focus on. This is the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the social cause, the social issue to focus in on. And it's a total attack against traditional families, and they don't the younger the kids are, the less aware they are, the less they have experience, right? To be able to weigh in on these matters and to make educated choices. They make choices based on how they feel. And that's why they want those younger and younger ages to be able to consent to these adult choices, because they don't have those cognitive experiences to make educated choices. They just will make a choice on how they feel. But what I really wanted to say is that it just recently came across that the term cisgender, which is also maybe a term that you've never heard of before, which is to say that someone only wants to be in what we would consider a normal relationship or not, right? And so it says the term was coined by a German sexologist who also stated, quote, the sexuality that spontaneously unfolds between a child and an adult is something wonderful. That is who coined the term cis that children are using in classrooms today. Children, like grade school children, are using these terms, and they're using these terms prolifically across government agencies and all of these different work environments and atmospheres. All these big companies are using all of these words now and making it a big part of their company's social justice of being affirming, and they're really weaponizing people's compassion is what's happening. But it goes on to say that his name's Volkmar Segush. First used the term cisgender and cissexual in 1991 in a publication titled Transsexuals and Our Nosomorphic View. Speaking of cissexuals, if there are transsexuals, logically, there must be cissexuals. One is not to be thought without the other at all. I have allowed myself to introduce the terms cissexualism, cissexuals, cisgender, etc., wrote Segush. So thank you, this crazy pedophile, multi-gender person, Volkmar Segush.
You bring up a really good point. So like the whole transgender or gender, having a gender, came from John Money out of in the 40s or 50s, and he was a pedophile. So there's the crossover, there's this, sexual component to all of this that underlies it all. And gender identity is a made-up term, and we should never use any of these terms. I think you bring up a really good point. Trans child, don't use that term. It's not a real term. Cis, none of that. You use the language that you know is real, because they're teaching us to use nonsense language. And they're going after like the basics, right? What a woman is. That's the most it's so basic that we didn't have a definition of what a woman is in law because it was just unknown, right? You don't have a definition of a tree. Everyone knows what a tree is. This is what they've done. We are now a belief. Anyone can be one. There's, they're very smart. I don't know. You brought up some other points about, we go back in time again with the CRT, and the CRT relates to this too. So when you have a white child who is affluent or middle class and doesn't have any victim points, that child will also feel left out. They don't want to be the oppressor. That's a really bad place to be. I don't want to be the bad guy. So what can you hop into? What category can you hop into to make yourself a victim? You can hop into the mental health category and you can hop into the LGBTQ category, and that will get you points. So then you're not the bad person because your parents are still married and you have 2 cars and you never missed a meal. So they guilt these kids into also believing this. And once they jump into that community, then they get celebrated. It was really interesting to watch when my daughter took on that identity. She could turn in her school projects whenever she wanted to.
Mhm.
She was special,
We
unique.
understand that you're going through something hard, and we'll give you special privileges, and we'll condone bad behavior because we want to be compassionate toward you.
And they pull on our heartstrings. And this, like, as a Democrat, this is how you get pulled in. Look, I changed all my stocks into ESGs before I actually knew. Environmental, social, and governance. I thought, oh, I'm really into the environment. I recycle and I don't use a lot of water, and I don't buy a lot of things with plastic. What I didn't know is that it's all a charade. It's all a game. Because you get points, you get the S points, the social points. If you spend $1 million on a pride parade, you get good guy points for the S. And so you can pay your workers terribly, not let them unionize, or not give them benefits, not give them bathroom breaks, but you'll still get your good guy points because you went ahead and spent $1 million on this parade.
Wow.
So it's all interrelated. This is all interrelated. Our institutions have been captured from our courts. And again, we're at this pinnacle moment where now judges, family court judges, are being trained by trans activists. They're being trained. Right now, they're at the trial level. We cannot let it get to the appellate level, because then we can't win. We can't win. So we have to look, they have a lot of time on their hands. They have a lot of money, lots and lots of money. So if you can't, make these phone calls and you can't drive up to Sacramento, then donate to a group that is fighting this. Write a couple checks, even if it's $25, it doesn't matter. These guys are flush with cash. The human rights campaign that fought for same-sex marriage, right, 10 years ago, they didn't have anything to do once they won that. They still needed to have an existence. So they moved over to the trans side of things. They went from bringing in $10 million to bringing in $78 million last year.
Wow.
Where do you think that money's going to? Our politicians. Because they don't have any overhead. They don't spend anything. It goes to throwing their big pride parades. They're flush with cash.
Erin, could I ask
we have
a
a lot
question?
of catch up to do. We don't have that kind of money.
Erin, could I ask a question?
Sure.
I understand that there is I think she's just.
Uh-oh.
We lost your Wi-Fi network,
Me?
Orleans.
Orlean? Yeah, okay. That was me. Maybe she can put her question in the chat if she can hear us.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll come back in a minute or two. But I'll say that, I think it's very clear with why somebody with the last name, basically Wiener, is with no children, is so interested in doing this. And I feel like a lot of people that are in this call tonight probably know about how lucratively bad sex trafficking has gotten and how much it's covered up, and how much the missing children is covered up, and how much the foster care system is racketeered by these dark forces. And so how do you continue to cover up something that's coming so close to the surface and so many people know is going on, even if we don't see it on a daily basis in our bubbles or out on our day-to-day routine. And I think the only way to hide it is to continue to deceive the public into thinking that it's it's normal. Um, and so they have to normalize sexuality at a young age, and they have to normalize these quirks and queerness as normal to hide what is really going on behind the scenes that we all know it exists, but this is a way for them to continue to hide, and is the way that I look at it. And the more they can convince children to go along and to consent to this and think that it makes them special or unique or different, um, just makes them prey. And that's why we see the drag queen shows for children. It's all to coerce them. It's a sick game of preying on our children.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this, but they're now paying kids to be the drag queens themselves. Again, 12 and older, so public schools are advertising for kids, you get a free pizza, a backpack, come to, you can get free makeup, come to the drag queen show, and you're the drag queen. So they're teaching kids to move and to collect dollars in their clothing in the name of what? In the name of progression, in freeness. I mean, it's all designed to destroy what is normal. And that's what queer theory is. That's the cue. Queer theory means you turn everything upside down. Men are women, women are men. Black is white, white is black. Parents bad, teachers good. Strangers, don't follow your visceral reaction. When you see somebody standing in front of you, you don't know what sex they are because they have to tell you. Everything is abnormal. It's kind of insane when I go to Sacramento and we have the testimony of people who look like me, and not necessarily my color, but we're dressed. We have normal clothes on, and then you see the people who are pro these bills, and you'll see a man with a full beard wearing a yellow chiffon dress, and they win. How is that? Because I know most of those people would not pass the babysitting test. If you had a baby, who would you let babysit your child? Me or the guy with the beard and the chiffon dress with the fake breasts? I'm going to tell you, you're going to pick me. Yet somehow their vote or their say is more important than those of us. And that's the queering of our country. That is the dismantling of everything that was considered normal. Normal has been a pejorative word. We need to take that back. It's okay to be normal. It's okay to not talk about sex. I didn't introduce myself as Erin Friday. I am married to a man, and this is what I do in bed. That's a weird thing to do. It's a very strange thing to do. And now they're asking children to do that. And teachers are doing it to children.
I am back, Erin. I'm sorry. I suddenly realized my computer was not plugged in.
Oh no.
It wasn't a conspiracy. It was my own fault. Anyway, I understand that there's a young girl, I think age 16, who has actually had a lawsuit against Kaiser because of what they did to her. Have you heard about that? And I just wondered how
Yes.
that's progressing.
Her name is Layla Jane. That's a pseudonym, but yes, she had her breast. She's autistic, of course. She had her breast removed at age 13. 13. So she filed suit against Kaiser. Chloe Cole filed suit against Kaiser. There's probably 2 more that are coming down the pike against Kaiser. But you know what the Democrats did? Can I tell you?
But
The newest bill is they are requiring medical malpractice insurance not to change rates when a doctor commits malpractice. So they are now covering for the doctors. That's what they're doing. Pushing this again. So even if the doctor thought, well, I might get in trouble for doing this on a 13-year-old. When a bill passes this year, they'll have coverage for that. And,
Wow.
and then I'll tell you, this is how it's going to go down. You'll remember this. You'll remember this from tonight. The legislators are going to point at the doctors and said, you told us it was gender affirmative care and that we had to do it. And the doctors are going to say, you lawmakers made us do this because you passed all these bills and forced us to do it. And the teachers are going to say, but we had training and you made us follow this training. Okay. And then you teachers, they're all gonna point at each other and then they're gonna go like this. You moms, you. And no one's gonna pay. Just like the opioid crisis, until we hold them to account. And we need to hold them to account because they need to pay. But that's what they're going to do. They're all going to point in different directions. And no one's going to end up. It's all going to fall on parents and the mom in particular.
Yeah,
I also wanted to say, Erin, it was actually how I met Summer when we were there protesting in huge number. There were 3,000 of us when they were trying to make mandatory vaccinations required to get children into the public schools. And there was a huge number of us speaking. We had to wait till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They kept delaying this, thinking we'd go home, but we didn't. And nobody voted against that bill, in spite of the huge number of us. And so after a while, I think parents think, you know, what difference does it make? We were there in mass, we were their constituents, yet they would not listen to us. And year after year, we do write letters, we do make phone calls, but when you've got a top-heavy Democrat legislation that doesn't even have to pay any attention to the Republicans because there's only 2 Republicans in each committee, they know that there's no stopping them, and so they just go full steam ahead. So I so admire your willingness to go there week after week and speak, and I'm sorry you're the only one sometimes. Eagle Forum is part of the California Family Council, and so Greg Burt is there representing all of us, and I live 2 hours away. I wish I could go there more often, but it's also so hard when you are treated so disrespectfully. I'm sure when you have been testifying, as I have been, the legislators look at their cell phones, they get up and leave, they pay no attention to you, and it makes it really hard.
It does, but it is starting to change. There are more people that are coming up. They can't ignore a Democrat saying Democrats are against this. They can't ignore the lesbians that are coming up from San Francisco saying lesbians are against this. The Hispanic parents that are coming up now, they can't ignore it for that much longer. I think they're a caged animal, and they're going to fight to the death, and we have to do the same. We have to keep going and going up and take it. That's our job, is to take it. But the press is now following this. Even the Sacramento Bee, can you believe it? The Sacramento Bee wrote a good article just last week on AB 957, we had a press conference and Greg Burt set it up. I love Greg. He's taught me everything I know. That was the first time the Sacramento Bee wrote an article about the harms to parents.
Wow.
So there is a change coming. It's slow. We need to force the change. We have to keep going, and we have to keep putting up numbers and signs and doing it in the right way. And I know this might sound offensive to some people, but we have to go up there and talk about the facts. We don't bring Jesus into it. We don't bring religion into it. We don't bring politics into it. We bring the facts. You're cutting off children's body parts. That's all we have to say. Then they can't write us off as being right-wing or uber religious or whatever they want to call. You know, same thing goes for the real lefties, because the lesbians don't need to talk about the patriarchy. They don't need to talk about that. All they need to talk about is the fact that men are in women's prisons. That's a fact, Jack. That's what we need to talk about. And the more times we say that, then they can't keep calling us names. It doesn't work. Scott Wiener, again, for the first time last week, he did his genocide of trans kids, blah, 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 his garbage about that. This is all against, the LGBT community. He couldn't, it fell on deaf ears because there were 20 or 30 lesbians that got up to the mic and said, I'm a lesbian. I'm against this. It didn't work. Parents of, I've got a child who thinks that they're trans, up at the microphone, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Democrat. It starts to takes the air out of the balloon. We need to take the air out of the balloon.
It's great.
You can unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question. But we do have an email list. Many of you probably were invited through it. You're welcome to email me. It's eagleforumcaleader@gmail.com. You can email me and I'd be happy to add you to the list. We share a lot of informative information. This year, we really wanted to hit bills early and get you to upload very quick statements that went straight to the committees where we have the greatest opportunity to kill bills early. Then you only have to worry about the people that sit on that committee and changing their mind about how they vote versus a whole state legislature. So that is something that we've really focused on this year, is trying to help you contact those committee members early. And now it's kind of, we're at the final stages of these bills where now you really need to reach out to your personal senators and assemblymen. It's easy to find out who your rep is. You can just go to Find My Rep on Google search engine, and it'll take you directly to an area where you would punch in your address, and it tells you who your representatives are for your specific area that you reside in. And so that's the easiest way to find out who your representatives are and to find their pages and to contact them by phone. Because there's too many phone numbers for too many different representatives to give them all to you here tonight, but I wanted to make sure that you understood how you can make a difference. It's a very easy phone call to make. A staffer is just picking up the phone and making tally marks on paper. But like she said, every tally mark on that paper stands for 500 or 1,000 people just like you who didn't pick up the phone. So your vote, your opposition or support of bills is very important. And it does make a difference when we all are participating, not just voting in November, but voting by actually having those relationships with our representatives.
And on Fridays, your local representatives, they're in your hometown. You don't have to drive up to Sacramento. Fridays, they're there. You can just show up. If you don't have an appointment, that's okay. I never have an appointment. I just stand around at the door and talk to whoever I can talk to, hand out materials and let them see my face so that when I do testify, they're like, oh, that's that lady again. She's not backing down. So
Agreed.
that's
Great point. Fridays at your local offices.
Yeah, I had a question to Erin. We're working hard. I mean, I agree with everything that you've said. And we're working hard at the local level to try to get parent rights resolutions passed in our local school districts modeled after AB 1314. Sometimes we can do a lot of damage at the local level that we can't do in Sacramento because I live in a relatively conservative area. And if we can just get like a foothold in our own area and surrounding districts, then we have a show of strength. And I mean, is there,
yeah, you are.
yeah,
Yes, and can I jump in here because 1314, so what we did was we just wrote a bill, or sorry, we wrote a policy for school boards to pass. And I'm looking it
yeah,
up
and
right
I
now.
have all of that. Yeah,
You have that?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been on all the conference calls with.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You're only half your face is showing. Oh,
I'm sitting here in the dark.
Yeah, you are in the dark. So there, I mean, there's that school policy, which is, tell the parents, you have to tell the
Right.
parents if the child,
Right.
and then we're going to write another one about the books. And it's not going to be a book banning one. It's going to be, hey, if there's pornography in this at the school libraries, that the parents have to give permission to take out the book each time. Not just,
Okay.
in the beginning of the school year, you sign something away, but we need to like chip away at these and go by the school boards. And the more school boards that pass these, of course, the better it is, because then people feel confident that they can do the same. So we need to just keep forging ahead. What they're going to do, right? They're going to come in and try to make a bill and take away all these rights. But that's fine too, because parents are waking up. Like they've had enough. You can see this in Glendale. There's a mutiny in Glendale. Same at, Chico. It's happening all over our state now. The Muslim community are getting involved. It doesn't matter what political spectrum you're from. Parents have had enough.
And I was talking to a group of people this morning, and they were telling me that there are groups of parents that are waking up the Hispanic community in nearby districts that are very controlled by the leftist agenda. But the Hispanics are beginning to wake up and really take a stand. So I think it's spreading in my county, Orange County, and that's a good thing, because I keep saying to any group that listens, Orange County's ground zero for ed reform out of Sacramento, because Al Maharis is our superintendent. He's in charge of all of this. Right. But Al's been missing in action for months now. I understand he has some very serious medical issues. So we're sadly winning because of his illness, but more than that, we're winning because more parents are waking up, and more parents are realizing, like we all keep saying, if you do not do something, then the inevitable will happen. You must take a stand. You must make those calls. You must show up at your school board meetings. So we've got people showing up now. And the other issue, of course, that you just mentioned, the pornography, the books available. That's another hot issue in the district I'm in and surrounding districts. So we've got multiple hot buttons that we can push. And what makes it good is it's hard for a leftist Planned Parenthood supporting board member to vote against parent rights, even though they are against the parents having a say. But it's hard for them to actually vote, at least some of them.
Yeah, and we at least need that, we need their, we need to know where they stand, and we need parents to know where they stand, that they're okay with
Exactly.
these things. Most parents, and even the lawmakers don't understand what's even happening. I had a Republican lawmaker, I told her my daughter desisted, and she's like, oh, that happens? They change their mind as if it were, I'm like, wow, you don't even know. Like, you don't even know the basics of this. And so some of it's a lack of education. So that's why, I mean, maybe your district offices, maybe that person in that office doesn't actually know what's happening at schools, that they are keeping these secrets at school. Maybe they don't know that the suicide rates are made up. Maybe they don't know that you're more than 19 times more likely to commit suicide after you transition. And those are real numbers. They don't know this. We have to tell them that.
Yeah.
And
I
again,
think-
the website that you recommend that we go to if we would like those kinds of facts.
So for those kinds of facts, I would go to Our Duty, which is my group, ourduty.group. If you go to the US tab, there's downloadable materials, and they're just, they're 2-pagers on each issue. So there'll be a 2-pager on detransitioners, a 2-pager on suicide, what's happening in Europe. They're really tailor-made for ease of use. They're written basically in 8th grade language. We've got them on why this isn't the new gay. We've got the side effects for puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones in one sheet. And what I do is I deliver them to all the teachers. I print them out and I have a nice little bag and I give them to the teachers. Here you go.
And it's at ourduty.group.
Ourduty.group. It's called downloadable materials, and they're really simple fact sheets. And then for the bills, I would go to Facts, Law, Truth, Justice.
Yep.
They have the toolkit there.
And is there an abbreviation for Facts, Law, Truth, Justice?
FLTJ LP.
FLTJ, and then what?
LP.
LP. Okay.
And that was in our last Eagle Forum newsletter as well, that went out in an email with the information about this webinar.
Great.
I think PERC has online one of the bills, but they don't have all of the other bills. That was another thing that they did, I think, this year, was they tried to divert attention over to the HPV bill. And I mean, the trans bills that they're passing this year are unbelievable, unprecedented. And they, it's a game of whack-a-mole.
We have another question, Mike.
Yes, and thanks, Erin, very much. Very astute, very informative. Can you, number one, provide a listing of your future speaking engagements? One of them I know about is August 26th in Dublin, California, along with John Yu and Stephen Hayward. You're coming over and up here from San Jose, I believe. And then the second thing is, I've been having some considerable success in exposing the extremes in our own San Ramon Valley School District in a website devoted to the rottenness in the district. I've put that site in the chat in a couple ways, and I've linked in particular the LGBT activism page. In our district, we have teachers who actually lectured at the so-called National Council of Teachers of English on what they called their experiences of queering the classroom. So that's become a focal point for one of the pages in the website. Again, I've listed it in the chat for everybody's advantage if they want to take a look there. Thanks again.
Can you
Yeah,
tell
Mike,
us that
you and I spoke
website,
a long
Mike?
time ago.
I couldn't, 2 people speaking.
I was asking you for that website because I can't find it in the chat.
Okay, go further up in the chat, and it's srvexpositor.com is the main page, the home page. And from there, you can see pages devoted to quote unquote queering the classroom, another page on pornography, and some particulars for our school district that are repeated throughout the state. At the queering the classroom page, and again, it's further up, it's again, the home page is SRV, San Ramon Valley, it stands for Expositor, one word, OR on the end of that, .com. And so the
Great.
classroom page at the top has a specification that's worked particularly well for us. And it's a board policy that is typically repeated throughout the state. They all use Simbly, a basic board policy site, and they develop their particulars from there, but that's the base. Most of the districts in the state, I believe, have a similar policy that says teachers shall take care not to interfere with the religious development of their students. And we've had considerable success on the part of Muslim parents here in fighting some teachers who have been found to be interfering with that particular religious development. So the Muslim parents have been among the most active in our district.
Amazing. Thank you. I did see that. That's great.
Thank you, Arlene. Good to see
Yeah.
you.
Good to see you, Mike.
Well, we thank you all for joining us. We are a bipartisan, nonpartisan organization, Eagle Forum of California. We do have strong conservative values, and we do believe in God. So we aren't ashamed to say that. But I think there's a lot of us that have been in both parties at different times, and we always reach across the aisle and are willing to talk to anybody who's willing to have the conversation. And I think that that's kind of what sets us apart as an organization, and that we partner with so many different organizations like, California Family Council, or, other policy projects and organizations. And that gives us the opportunity to really pivot to whatever is the hot topic that really needs our attention, instead of just one topic. And so we hope that you feel educated and informed, and most importantly, that you feel like you can take action and actually do something. I think so many times the problems are very clear, but the solutions are muddy or cloudy. And so I really try to focus when I'm talking or sharing information, that I give you action and tools that equip you to be able to do something, and not just be angry and frustrated in a corner somewhere, or feeling like you can run and hide. Because the thing is these people are relentless who push these agendas, and there is no place to hide. And where California goes, or how California goes, is how the rest of the country goes, or how the rest of the world goes. So really, we are ground zero, and we are the warriors that need to be fighting this, not only to save our own families or our own towns or our own state, but really, like, we're the world changers here in California. And so I hope that you feel empowered to be a world changer. That's why we do these Eagle Forum meetings. And so we're working on our website, but you're always welcome to visit our website, which is eagleforumca.us. And you're always welcome to email me if you'd like to be on our email list, or you have questions or comments, and that's eagleforumcaleader@gmail.com. All right, let's close for this evening. We thank you all for being guests, and especially thank you, Erin Friday, for coming on and for rising above your challenging circumstances to be the change, not only for your own family, but for the communities that you have influenced to change. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your heart and wisdom.
Thank you
you,
for
Erin.
letting me speak. Have a good rest of your evening, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you. You were wonderful.
And if we could have a closing prayer, I already asked Orlean, so maybe I could ask John, would you be willing to give a closing prayer?
David Lehman.
Or yes, sorry, David Lehman. I saw John on there. You're like, who's she talking to? Oh, he's got to unmute. Let me help that. Are you unmuted now?
You unmute down at the very bottom, David.
There should be, when you go to the bottom of your screen for
At the far left.
Yeah, you should be able to see it when you click your cursor over the bottom of the screen.
Yes,
Awesome.
Great. Okay.
Thank you for saying yes.
Father, we just thank you so much for all that was presented tonight. Lord, we just pray that you will, Lord, reach out to the people that are working so hard to bring back values that honor you. Lord, I just thank you for all the people here and Eagle Forum and those that are working with them to somehow bring this state back to you and bring this nation back to honor you in everything that we do and say. Lord, we just help this information to get out there so that people can be aware of the fact that we need to do something. And Lord, we should not let the evil people, the satanically deceived people win. Lord, we pray for those people. We pray that they would turn around as well, that they would come to know you as their personal Lord and Savior. But Lord, we just ask that you will save this state, save this country. Lord, have mercy upon us. We thank you in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dina.
everybody, for sticking around to the end. We appreciate your time. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Summer
Good night.
and Erin.